Hello, MLB Showdown community. I'm the MLB Showdown guru, Colby Talafis, and this is our Play for the Card segment. In this segment, we look ahead to the 2012 season, look ahead to some of the exciting cards we'll be able to play with in that season. Today, we're going to be specifically focusing on corner outfielders, but first, we're going to answer questions from you, our viewers. First, one of our pros, Kyle Van Pelt, sent in, what, if any, effect will happen to those players that went down with injuries a couple weeks ago? Will they be prorated? What will the effect be on their card? He specifically asked about Joey Votto, who is not a corner outfielder, but he was hurt, and he is a very big topic of conversation as he was in 11 when he got hurt. If he comes back and is able to play a little bit more, he'll be able to keep that 11 status because he'll have enough at-bats to qualify. When he got hurt, he was projected to be on pace to be a 11, 19 to 20 homer with 4 doubles. That will likely not happen because when he gets cut back, he won't get much help for being hurt because of the length of time. So he won't get enough help to his stats to put him up to the 4-double level. So really, this injury is actually hurting Joey Votto. Similar case to Jose Bautista, who, if he comes back, which I think that is in question now, I saw an article that he's getting another MRI. If he comes back, he's going to need to get back on that normal power pace, if not hit more, because he was projected to play over the number of at-bats we prorate to. So it might be better for Bautista actually to not come back at all this season. I don't know what the Blue Jays are going to do being so low in that American League East. So we'll see what happens to those guys. Players who might be positively affected by proration, though, one is Starling Marte for the Pirates. Right now he's currently at 5, but with so few at-bats, he could easily jump up higher if he can get on base, get a couple walks. But right now he's on pace to be a 14 to 20 homer. So obviously if he gets a little bit more on base, it'll come down to earth a little bit. But it's still very powerful and very few at-bats. He just needs to get that on base up. A player who doesn't struggle much with on base is Jason Worth. Because he walks so much, because he's a speed power threat, he has the opportunity to really just be a productive player. He might be in the mold of a Desmond Jennings from a couple years ago. Jennings coming up as a rookie, Worth just struggling with an injury all year long. Now on to players who've played the entire year. We'll start out trying to go a little bit fast because we're going to try to get through a few more players because we need twice as many corner outfielders to play. One player who's been rock solid the past 3 years has been Matt Holliday, and he'll be the exact same card he's been the last 3 years. 10, 19 to 20 homers, 16 to 18 double, speed B, +1 outfielder. If you like him, you like him. If you don't, you don't. But he's always going to be there for us, apparently. A newcomer to the list is actually going to be Melky Cabrera, who looks like he could be a ton of runs for not a lot of points in the 3-hole for somebody. He looks like he's going to be a 10 with a 20 homer, a pair of triples, maybe 3 doubles, a single plus, and a lot of singles because he has 154 hits and only 34 walks. That's going to mean a lot of runs and not a lot of points. If you are not interested in hitting for power, and you want to have a nice deep lineup, Melky Cabrera is a player you might want to target very early on here. Be very interested to see what his card comes out to if he keeps up that 350 and change average that he's been holding up. A player who's going to look a lot like another player from last year is going to be Carlos Gonzalez. He's going to look very much like the Ryan Braun from last year, that 570-ish point range, as a 10, as a speed A, with a 19 to 20, with a couple doubles, with a single plus. It's going to be a very, very good card. It's very expensive, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We saw in our latest mock drafts that there just aren't enough points league-wide that we actually start pulling in some of the more expensive players. So this Carlos Gonzalez could be a very valuable player. Now, speaking of Ryan Braun, he is doing the same thing he did last year with even more home runs potentially. He could be up to a 10, 18 to 20 homer. Just keep that speed A, keep the doubles up, have a single plus. We're talking about a player who could be in the 600-plus point range just because he's being the total package. I know he's not getting a lot of press right now, and that might be because of some of the negative press he's received the last year especially because of those things that we shall not name around here. A player who's kind of come out of the woodworks as far as I'm concerned is Josh Willingham. I don't have a lot of faith in him as a player, but he keeps proving me wrong by hitting home runs. He's adding a nice bit of depth as far as not being too expensive but having some power. Willingham's on pace right now to be a 9 who could very easily jump up to a 10. He's got 17 to 20 power if he keeps it up. So that's very nice. And keeping up with the depth part of this conversation, you drop down to the 8s, and we're looking like we have a Mark Trumbo with a 16 to 20 homer, which is very exciting. Again, having lots of options here. And even if you drop down to the 7s, you might have a power punt option, Alfonso Soriano. I know he doesn't run very well, and he also doesn't field very well. He's probably the worst fielder in the league, so we're looking at a +0 there. But he could be a 17 to 20 homer. He might get up to a 16 to 20 homer as a 7 because the wind's starting to blow out in Wrigley. So let's keep up with him and see what he ends up at. All that to say is it's looking like that corner outfield problem from last year may be solved by this year's class. A player that was very good last year and a very serviceable player in Andre Ethier was a 9-20 homer with 2 doubles last year. He's looking very similar with a 9 with a 20 homer, maybe 3 doubles this year. I'm sorry. It's going to be looking like a very productive player. Another productive player is Carlos Beltran, who right now looks like an 8, 17 to 20. If he gets on a hot streak like he did at the beginning of the year, he might get up to a 16 to 20. Might be a very productive player. He could really do some good things for that Cardinals team. Let's see if they get some late season magic and if he's a part of that and can really help his card out. Now I'm going to focus on a couple kind of players who you may not think of. I know I've talked a lot about power, a lot about on base, but first we're going to talk about some leadoff hitter potential types. First, Eric Young Jr., and Quentin Berry, who are looking like 9 speed A's, maybe +20 speed A's. Both of them aren't going to homer. The thing I very much like about Eric Young is he looks very much like his father, so the potential to have him and his father on the same team in Showdown is really kind of appealing to me. As a pair of 9 speed A's who can't homer at the top of my lineup for cheap, I'm a little nostalgic. What can I say? Another player who might be in that mold who's not a speed A is going to be Daniel Nava. He doesn't have a lot of homers. He gets on base a good bit. And then 2 old-timers who may have a chance to jump themselves up to be useful cards is Juan Pierre and Bobby Abreu. Both these guys still have their speed a little bit, Abreu a little bit less. It's always tough to tell his speed because he is that bigger guy, but he always seems to run pretty well, and maybe he deserves a speed A. They're both 8s now, and they both easily could get up to 9s. We all have a lot of faith in these guys as players. We've seen them a lot the last few years, and we have faith in them. So those are guys I'd have my eyes on. There are a lot of other good players I haven't mentioned. Josh Reddick's having a good year, but his on base isn't where it ought to be. There are a couple other players who have a bunch of homers who could potentially be just really good players. I think the power's back in this position. I'm very excited. And I know a lot of you guys are wondering what about the kid out there for the Nationals, Bryce Harper. I'm sad to tell you guys that right now he is on pace to be a 7. He's going to probably have a couple of homers. He'll be a decent player, but he's not going to be the player a lot of you guys would like him to be. But I will tell you guys this. Remember that Carlos Beltran was once a 7. It's not the kiss of death to have a low on-base card as your first year. So let's just keep this all in perspective that he's going to have a lot of bright years in front of him. He's going to be a good player. Let's not take Mike Trout's great year and expect every rookie to do that. So Bryce Harper may not have the best year this year, but next year he could easily have a great year, and he could still finish up strong and be a productive player. If you guys want to hear about any single player next year, we're going to be focusing on DHs, but I'd like to hear who you guys would like to have me talk about because I can easily cover all the DHs in a very quick amount of time. There's not a lot of them, so please send to me on Twitter who you would like to see me cover. Use the hashtag #PlayForTheCard so that I can remember and keep notes, and that way I can give you a shout out and give your player a shout out. We can get an idea of who's coming down the pipe for this next year. So thank you all for listening, and play for the card.